Hey, welcome. Enjoying your blended family on a Monday topic. All the B-fams out there, we are so glad that you have jumped into this episode. This is a episode that maybe you're knee deep in it right now, or it's coming. If you have a little child, it is coming. And so the more prepared we are, the more able we are to handle it through these sometimes challenging times. Some people have sailed through this and some people have really not. And, this is just one of those topics that's a good one.
They survived.
They survived.
They get the shirt that says, I survived.
They came out with a lot of gray hair, but we are talking preteen and teens. How do we connect better with them? How do we parent better for them? How do we, how do we even get them to hear and see us and listen to us? So these are some of the challenges that we face in blended families. So it is going to be a powerful one. We have 5 tips that can really help revolutionize where you're at as a parent whenever you're in this position. So stay tuned. This is going to be an enlightening episode.
All right. Now, some of you that are listening to this, you were like, thank God. Because I've hit these preteen teen years and oh my gosh, I need some help. Some of you, you're hearing this out of desperation. Like you are so deep in this that you feel like someone has crushed your heart. I know that our pastor used to say like, oh, I love the teenage years. They were so great. And so I was excited, anticipating. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be one of those parents. I am not going to dread the teenage years. And the teenage years came through like a wrecking ball in our household.
Yeah, and I think for one, I remember Joe McGee. We listened to him because we were always diving into parenting things, and he was such, man, they're so great. The teenage years is so awesome, and yeah. And I think as I'm looking back, a lot of who claim that to be, they were nuclear families. They weren't step families, and I see more and more not problems, but hard challenges whenever it's parenting teenagers through a blended family. That can really be hard. It can be a real big challenge. And so that's kind of why we're bringing this up, that we lived that. Ours was so challenging. We faced so many different things. And you felt like once you accomplished one area, like, oh, we made it, we got this, then something else completely new would come and catch us off guard, blindside us.
Especially when you have multiple kids and they're each going through that. And if they're kind of back to back, man, there's just so many different situations, especially in today's culture with the cell phones and the friends, the social media, all of it just really ups the ante on the difficulties that come. And I mean, I was 100% not prepared for what the teenage years had brought to us. And then as soon as it would happen with one kid, we're focused on them. And then the other kid just right around the corner, getting into their own issues, especially when you turn your focus from one of the kids and you're giving it all to one that really needs it. The others begin to act out in certain ways.
And so we're going to kind of bring from a few different points of view that, we have lived it, we survived it, we got the T-shirts, and ours was not an easy transition. Ours was very difficult. So we learned a whole lot through that. But then we're also going to come to it through a youth pastor point of view, because that's what we did for many years. We were youth pastors and for over a decade, youth leaders. And so we were in and out with a whole lot of teenagers constantly. And so getting to see it from all different types of perspectives, different dynamics, different homes. We learned a whole lot. So we're hoping that through this, if you're struggling with this right now, you're going to walk away with a whole lot of hope. You're going to walk away with a whole lot of encouragement. If you're fixing to step into it, you're better equipped and prepared. So, it really is. But, a lot of the problems that we see with teenagers and preteens. And let's define preteen. So preteen is basically like if you're in middle school, intermediate school. It's hitting around the 5th, 6th grade era.
Yeah, but in today's culture, you start to see some of these same things in the school system. We would see it really in 4th grade. You would see this transition where the attitude, my goodness. And that's where I think I hear most complaints when it comes to people complaining about their preteen and teenagers is the attitude. And I get it.
Yeah, no, you start seeing more of that attitude and you start seeing more of the bullying and stuff at such a younger age than we ever have in culture before. And it is a challenge. It's a challenge for our kids, especially in the school systems and just in their groups alone. There's a lot of challenges that come with it. And then they start hitting the teenage years, and you're still kind of the earlier teenage years, 13, 14, you're starting to see there's still that bullying. There's still a lot of problems, attitudes, things of that.
Well, basically, they're trying to take control over their life.
Yeah.
And one of those things is like their room being one of those huge areas they can take control, and it just gets nasty.
Yeah, and you start seeing them pull away. You start seeing them isolating themselves from family. Mm-hmm. You start seeing them more secluded in their rooms. On their phone a whole lot more, video games as the escape from reality. You start seeing them just really kind of push themselves to the side. And then as parents, we're like, well, they don't want to be a part of the family. No, they do. We're going to talk about that. But this is just one of their ways to take control of their lives in a sense. So, we see a lot of that. But then even in the blended family realm, around the 15, 16-year age, even 14-year age, if they're with one parent more, they start desiring the other parent. And a lot of times that's our worst fear, is for them to not choose us or not want to be with us. But it's just a kind of a natural thing. And so we'll talk on that as well, because that can be a challenging thing for parents kind of going through that. But you start seeing the attitudes, you start seeing the mess, you start seeing the
picking friends that you don't approve of.
The lack of motivation. It's like they just are so unmotivated. And well, back in my day, I used to work 20 hours when I was 15 years old, and all they want to do is play video games. That's kind of we do. We start seeing the lack of motivation because they're constantly on their phones and things, groups pulling them away, relationships are a big deal for them. I mean, this is life for them as relationships. But out of all of these problems, it's the common theme that we all went through. It just amplified a little bit more because of social media and technology today, but it's all due to identity. We are transitioning from being a kid. We are now trying to transition into young adulthood, and that's that time period, and we're trying to figure out, where do I fit into it? What do I, where do I go? And people's opinions weigh heavy on me. People's opinions, I want to fit in. I want people to want me. That is the big thing through that transition. They're trying to figure out, well, what does that look like? And so you'll start seeing them modeling after different genres, groups. You'll have them all dressed in black one day for a season, and then you're going to have them all. And when they do that,
don't tell them they're going through their emo stage. They don't want to hear that.
That's the worst thing, right? Because they want to be different. Yes. But yet they don't. They're not different. It's the same stuff that, every generation did. So, it's just kind of, so I think a lot of when we're parenting teens is, I think some of my biggest thing that I would tell parents is, you got to remember what you were going through when you were a teenager. Just really, sometimes we're so far removed from that we have to sit back and just kind of take a little time and reflect back on your teenage years and what that was like for you and the problems that you went through, the identity you were seeking, and really start bringing that back to surface again for you. Because now, once you do that, you can help somewhat relate better with what they're going through and their journey. And it kind of eases your heart a little bit to understand.
Yeah, well, and I think it's our natural tendency. Like, we went and experienced some hard stuff in our teenage years. So we want to alleviate that for our kids. We don't want them to go through it. And so we put up these boundaries and all of these rules in here because we're going to make sure our kids don't experience those things. But the thing is, and that I have to remind myself too, is I had to walk through those things to become the person that I am. Somebody else could not tell me, don't do that because it's going to get you into trouble. I just had to experience some things, and some things were just hard life lessons. And for us as parents to remember that this is the journey that they're on. We're here to help guide them, but it's still their choices that they have to make. And to be able to step back from that as a parent and not see every bad choice that they make as a reflection of you're a bad mom or you're a bad dad, or if you weren't divorced, if you didn't remarry, this wouldn't be happening. It's just a part of the journey that they're on. And when we can do that, I think we can walk aside them better on this journey. Because when I was able to realize that, I was able to remove my own guilt or judgment on me, and then I could come alongside them and just be present with them. But as long as their decisions I thought reflected me, then we were back and forth battling. And another thing off of what I just want us to hit before we really get into this is these issues that you're having with your kids. We are not necessarily going to give you answers to that specific issue. Those issues are outward signs of some deeper issues going on. And Randall, he hit the nail on the head when he's saying it goes back to that identity and wanting to belong, wanting to be seen and loved by people. And they're searching for that, even from you as their parent, from you as their step-parent, from their biological parent that's no longer in the picture, whomever it is, and they're searching through these different avenues. And so if you're saying today, yeah, but you don't know what my kid's doing, they're hurting themselves, or they're starting to mess around with drugs, or they're dating this person that's not good for them, all of those things are these ways of them reaching out and saying, something make me feel good on the inside. So the things that we're going to talk about today, you're going to be like, that doesn't really help the current situation. Trust us in these things. When we can get down deep into the root of the issue that your kid is dealing with, then these other surface level things are going to start to clear up.
Yeah, they really will. And, this is just that example of, us as parents. I know for me especially, this is kind of how I approached it at first, and which was not the best of ways, but we are so much further removed from our teen years. And so when we look back and see them going through it, we're like, that's dumb. Why are you shouldn't even be feeling that way. That is so stupid. All that's not going to matter in a few years anyway. Yeah. And we approach their lives as that, and saying, well, that's just, because to us, it's like, that's so immature. Y'all grow up.
You don't know what love is.
That's not even important. You don't know what love is. That's, wait till you get older and then you'll really have trouble. Yeah. and the thing is, this is their life right now. This is what's important to them. And no, they don't understand where you're at. They will in 20 years, but you
can't say that
because they won't see it, right? Because they haven't experienced that. And like you were saying, Scarlett, that, this is part of their journey. And for us to realize that and say, okay, well, that relationship, yeah, it may be dumb and that's a stupid person they're with, but they have to experience that. And that's part of, for them, that is so important to them right now. So for us to really being able to, like I said, pull ourselves and get back down on their level and help walk with them through some of those, we can help actually be that guide and leader and help lead them to some things and help them realize things on their own by the way we parent, as opposed to coming at it with, that's dumb. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't even be worrying with that. Because whenever we express that to them, basically what you're telling them is, you don't matter. Your thoughts, your feelings, all that doesn't matter. They're not applicable. They don't mean anything. They're pointless. They're senseless. That's what they hear. And whenever I finally caught on to that, I'm like, oh man, and then we wonder why they push away, and we wonder why they lock themselves up in a room, because every time they try to talk to us, we shoot them down, and we don't mean to. We're just trying to, we've got wisdom and knowledge, and we want them to already be at a 40-year level, a 30, 40-year level, when they're not. They're at a 15-year level. And so, we want to start learning, we want to start parenting differently. And so that kind of really segues into our first thing that we're going to present, and that is transitional parenting. And what that means is, for so long, you as a parent, you've been telling your kid what to do, what to wear, when to do it, jump this high, do this, do that, blah 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 blah. But that they needed that, right? And from the very beginning, when they're a baby, you're telling them, you're giving them food, you're feeding them, and all the way up to certain years. That's how we've parented, because that's what was needed, and that's part of parenting. But what tends to happen is we try to keep that same mentality through these preteen, teen years. Like, I'm still the parent. I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're going to do exactly what I say. If I say jump, you're going to jump. And unfortunately, when we continue parenting that way, all we're doing is pushing our kids away. Now, I want you to hear me, because we've witnessed this firsthand, and we've seen it time and time and time again in so many different family dynamics, is that you will start pushing your kids away if you're trying to parent with the rules and with the laws. Now, am I saying that just throw them away? No, not at all. And it's, as I'm saying that, it takes me back to the Bible, to where, back whenever, the Old Testament, how we had the rules, the laws, and we had to follow this, you had to sacrifice this, you had to do all this. And then Jesus died for us, and he was the final sacrifice. Now we live under grace. We don't have to live under the rules and laws. And so I remember Paul answering that question, being, well, does that mean we can do anything? And he's saying, well, no, that you can do anything, but not everything's beneficial for you. So, it all do, you come at it differently. You come at it with a different approach now, and that's what we're doing with our parenting. We're coming at it with a different approach, to where we're not leading with the rules and laws. Now we're leading more with choice. We're leading more with questions and guiding in that sense.
And we've used this example before, and to me, it's just such a great visual, because if you've ever gone through learning how to drive or driver school or anything, and you're going through that period of time with your kids, it's this reminder of what this parenting season of the preteen and the teen years really are for us. And so when your kids are younger, it's just like you when you're driving them around everywhere they need to go. But then they go through this season of learning to drive for themselves, and you're in that passenger seat. They're the ones with the steering wheel, right? They're the ones that have that control, but you're still there guiding and teaching them. You're teaching them the rules and the laws, but more of the reasons, like why, so that when you're no longer in that car with them, they're able to take themselves from point A to point B safely. If you didn't have this preteen teenage stage of life, and they went straight from you driving them into them driving for themselves with no teaching, no experience, it would be a scary situation. So we have to utilize this time, this transitional parenting time, so well that we are giving them control, but we're teaching them little lessons on the reasons of the whys behind it, and we're doing it still while they're in the comfort of our presence. That way, when they do go off on their own, that they can do it successfully. The parents that hold on to control all the way up until their kids move out and their kids finally get freedom once they're out of the house, they're off at college or wherever they go, it's a free-for-all, because they've never had the ability to have control. And so some of the things we're going to talk about here in just a minute too is just these ways that you can release some of that control, because it is hard, but we need to do it now when they have the safety of us being in their presence. It's just like, it's so weird, because back in Bible times, there wasn't this preteen teenage stage. When your daughter got her period, she got married. Yeah. She went, if she was 14, 15, 16 years old, she went off and had to be a wife and began creating her whole family. And it's biologically, the way God created, they have these hormones and everything stirring inside of them. And now that's happening under our roof. And so we're watching this, and sometimes it just drives us crazy because we're scared, right?
Yeah, we're like, what do we
We're
do?
like, what's happening? But their body, their minds were created to transition from child to adult. And so we have the privilege to come alongside them and begin to release that and begin to allow them to take some of it.
Yeah, and when we're really what we're looking at is it's our kids, they're transitioning. They're transitioning because, they went from being a kid where they had no thought, they had, they just listened and did, to where now they're starting to gather their own thoughts. They're starting to question a little bit more. They're starting to have opinions, and they're starting to get a little life under their belt. And so, they're getting more exposed, and then throughout the years, it becomes more and more and more. And so they're fighting to be like, hey, I have a voice. I have a voice. Hey, I have a voice.
Yeah.
And so when they're doing that transition that they're going, we have to start transitioning as that parent as well, to where now we're parenting a little differently. And as Scarlett's saying, now we're giving them boundaries to operate in. We're giving them safe boundaries. They're going to make the bad choices or the wrong choices sometimes, but now they get consequences that come with those choices. And with that, they learn. They start learning, okay, well, if I do this, I get that. I don't like that, so I'm going to do this. And whenever we start expanding those boundaries a little bit as they're starting to go through this transition, we start opening more, and more, but we're helping give them that safety zone to where they can start using their voice, starting to learn how to use that to become that adult. And that way, whenever they are out of our house and they're not going crazy, right? And so just, you're like, okay, I hear you, makes sense, I get it, but what does that look like? And so just for an example, we'll throw out a curfew example because this is one that you'll deal with. And let me say, there are going to be so many things, right, that you're going to deal with. You're going to, once you figure out one issue, like I said, a new issue is going to come up and you're going to be like, dang it, I didn't think about that one. But this is kind of the approach you can take, right? So like the curfew, your kids are starting to get a little older to where now they're going off or they're wanting to go with a friend and they're wanting to go out a little later than normal. So normally what we would do as parents is like, you're going to be back at this time. This is the time you're going to be back.
Nothing good happens after midnight.
Nothing good ever happens at midnight. And if you're not back, then you're in trouble. And so what happens, they come back after the curfew and you give them the right act. You read it to them and you're like, you're grounded forever. And I'm taking away your electronics for 20 years. And I'm, you just,
He's mocking me in this because these are real life examples.
And a lot of times whenever this happens, we just shoot off a consequence without even thinking about what it is. And now we either hold to it and then they see that we're a person of our word, or we say, dang, that was too harsh, and then we don't, and then they'd be like, oh, they're gullible, I can get away with stuff, right? Yeah. And so that's what we want to avoid. We don't want to get ourselves into situations like that. But like the curfew, like that starts becoming a thing, and you realize, hey, okay, they're wanting to do this. What you do is you bring your child in and your kid in, your preteen, your teen in, and be like, hey, listen, okay, so you're wanting to go off with your friend. I think there needs to be a curfew. There should be a time that you should come back home. What time do you think that should be? And then be quiet and give them a voice. And then they'd be like, well, good point. Maybe 11 o'clock? Well, 11 o'clock sounds good. Okay. Maybe you had in your mind 10 o'clock and you're like, what about, 11 sounds good. Okay. What about 10 o'clock? Could we, would that be okay? 10 o'clock will work. We could do that. 10 o'clock sounds good. Okay, well, let's do it 10 o'clock then. We'll say 10 o'clock's your curfew.
Or me in the middle and say 10:30.
Or me in the middle and say 10:30. If, maybe you show them compromise, the power of compromising, right? Say 10:30. Okay, so 10:30 sounds good. So when you go out with your friends, we both agree you're going to come home at 10:30. Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. Okay, cool. Now, well, what happens, though, if you come home late? So now you're breaking curfew. What do you think should happen then? Oh, yeah, well, if I come home late, I think you should probably take away my phone for a few days or something. Okay, sounds good. Well, let's say that then. Let's say that, if you come home after your curfew, then that's going to be your consequence. If that's what you think it should be, or maybe you think it should be something a little different. So you throw that out there and they're like, oh, that's a little harsh. And then y'all compromise on what that looks like. And so at the end, it's y'all spit shake, handshake and everything. Okay, this is what's going to happen. That way now you brought them in on the process that you knew needed to happen. There needed to be a curfew, but now you're pulling them in and getting them to think about it. And you're hearing from them. You're getting their point of view. You're giving them a voice, saying, hey, this is a mutual thing we're coming up with. So you're teaching them in a sense, and you're leading them to what you wanted, to what they needed actually is what you're leading them to, but you're bringing them in on that process. Now they're a part of it, and they're going to take a little bit more responsibility now whenever they go out. Hey, I need to be home by 10:30. I need to make sure, because if not, I know what the consequence is going to be. So now y'all have decided that, to where if they come home late, it's like, oh man, I hate that for you. Yeah, well, you know what? I know we agreed that you're going to get your phone taken away, but you know what? Next time, I know you're going to do better. Next time, I know you'll be here before that. Now you're encouraging them. They're still getting that consequence. They're saying, okay, well, if I do this, there's a consequence to that. Man, okay, I don't want to do that again. And now we're not the bad guy. We start removing ourselves from being the bad guy. And then later on, it's, they get a little older and they say, well, could we change the curfew? Well, let's talk about it. What do you think now? And y'all redo it again. Maybe a few years older, they want to bump it up to 11 or 12, whatever. But, when you start doing that with anything that comes up, a thing that you see needs to happen, there needs to be a rule or something in place, you're pulling them in and you're helping them be a part of that. When you can start doing more of that, now you're transitioning, you're pulling them into the process, and you're both coming up with a consequence. That way you're not fly-by-night parenting. You're not saying, well, you need to do this or you need to do that. All that does is push them away. We become the bad guy. We're taking away their voice. But if we do it the other way, now we're giving them a voice. We're pulling them a part of the process. They're understanding consequences and they're understanding what happens. And so there's power in that. That's part of that transitional parenting. And, at first it's going to be small. It's going to be a few things whenever they're hitting the preteens. There's not going to be a lot. But that once you start working into that mindset, and then the more older they get, the more advanced, the more things y'all start talking about. And I'm telling you, it will shift your teenager's perspective just in home alone. And now you're not the bad guy. You're working with them. You're like, we're a family. We love you and we accept you and we want you to have a voice, and you're helping guide them in that.
Yeah, and just remembering that, when you're doing something new, there's going to be a learning curve. You might not, and they might not get it right, so you might have to come up with something better like situations in there as far as the consequences. But also remembering that helps take the emotion out of it, right? So you don't want to be like, we're going to sit down and have this meeting right now when they just broke the rule. Before you even knew this needed to be a rule, and there's just this whole situation that came up. Okay, I just listened to this podcast. We're going to sit down. What time do you think the situation takes place? Give yourself time and themselves time to be removed from it from a little bit, breathe, start seeking God, help me in this, and then present, okay, so this is a problem. We need to come up with a solution. Let's meet, let's talk, tomorrow, let's get together. We're going to talk about this.
Yeah. So there is just so much power in that. And that was kind of the big one. The other four are going to go a lot quicker, but with that transitional parenting in a blended family as well, if you're the bonus parent, we always say, depending on where you're at in the journey, if you're a newer family, a few years in, you're parenting from behind the scenes. You're approaching this more as a friend, as a mentor, kind of that. And then when you see an issue, you bring it up with your spouse and y'all talk about it behind the scenes, come up, how do we approach our kid with that? And, you lead that way whenever you're in that. And then throughout the years, as you're blending together, as you're blending, more, then you get to be more of that voice in it as well. So as that, we see a lot of bonus parents, they come in, they just want to be the dominant rule follower. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. all you're going to do is push them away. You're going to push them away to where they don't feel like they're a part of the family. They don't have a voice, except it's going to be more amplified because then they're going to start throwing out, well, you're not my dad, you're not my mom, and all that. And it's like, they're already feeling that in a sense, and we want to help eliminate that. So as the bonus parent, if we can approach it more as that mentor, as more of that friend, like, hey, I'm on your side. I love you. I'm here for you. And then whenever you see a problem, oh man, okay, well, let me talk with your mom, or let me talk with your dad on that. And then you and them, y'all start talking, hey, I saw this as an issue. What do you think? And then y'all start talking, coming up with good ways to start approaching your kid with that.
Yeah.
Well, man. All right. So we got 4 more. The other 4 are going to go a lot quicker, but man, that was just a powerhouse right there.
Yeah.
So we're going to share the other 4 right after this.
Blended families can be hard at times, can't they? Have you ever said, I don't feel like me and my spouse are connecting? Or I'm bending over backwards and my stepkid still pushes me away? Or do you feel like your family's doing okay, but you'd like it to be more than okay? You want your family to level up, take it to an even stronger level.
The truth is, we're all looking for more joy and happiness in our lives. So how do we start seeing that in our blended family? Because really, our family is the first place we should truly be enjoying and having the most fun with. So how do you enjoy your blended family? You create more fun opportunities that your family loves doing. These are big things, they're small things that cost money, things that don't cost money. But the more fun you have together, the less blended family drama you'll have, which equals more joy and happiness for everyone. Now, you may be saying, yeah, but I don't know how to do that. I don't even know where to start. That's okay. We walk you through 5 fun dates you get to have with your family. These dates help you discover those fun things your family loves doing. You'll walk away with so many more great ideas and have an amazing, easy plan to make it happen and to keep it going. Plus, you get to have a lot of fun discovering all this in the process. We walk you through everything and make it really fun and easy.
So how do you enjoy your blended family? By going on these 5 dates and discovering fun in your stepfamily. You'll be so glad you did. Have more fun together and you'll see less problems. The link to get started on this amazing journey is in the show notes of this episode.
All right, so number 2. So number 2 is the ask more questions and listen more. This is one that, really use James 1 where it says, be quick to listen, quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Write this on your mirror, write it in a pad, paper, whatever. Whenever you're parenting teenagers, this needs to be a go-to scripture. Be quick to listen, slow to anger, and slow to speak. Because most times when our kids are acting out, there's something deeper behind that. They're thinking something different. What's your thought process in this?
Well, and I was going to say, a lot of people as parents, we don't know. We're like, I don't know how to do this. I'm in my small group. We talk about we're learning how to parent our adult kids. And a lot of the things that's said often is, I can't do that. I can't do that. I just tell them what to do. I tell them. And there's this approach that you can take. If you were sitting with your child's friend, because you don't know as much about them, right? Or maybe you know some, but you don't have the skin in the game. So you're not preaching at them. You're not talking to them, telling them what they should do. You ask them questions. You're curious. You listen. You let them tell you what's going on. And when they say stuff that you're like, oh, crap, you don't just jump in, right, and tell them how they should be doing this kind of stuff. You ask more questions. And so if you can approach your kids during this stage like you would approach your friend's child or your child's friend, and just begin to question and then sit back and listen. And even if you hear stuff you don't like, you're noting it for future discussion, but you're not coming in and telling them how they should live their life right then.
There's part of that maturity and immaturity, right? We are more mature as adults. They are immature. They're trying to learn to be mature. And so as us, we want to tell them, no, do this, do that, do that. But in our maturity, if we're being completely mature parents, we're able to get information. We're almost like a spy, right? But we're doing it in a loving way. We're listening and we're locking that back. Okay, how can I use this later? Okay, I know that's an issue for them. What could I do later to help them, to guide them into a better solution. Because if I just tell them straight up, they're not going to hear me. They're going to put up a wall. So, okay, I got to be smarter than that. And so that's kind of our approach as parents. And I know it's hard because we just want to tell them, that's dumb, do this. Yeah. You shouldn't do that, do this, but that's, we're taking their voice away whenever we do that. And as teenagers, preteens and teens, they're finding that voice and they want to have a voice and they want you to be proud of them that they do have a voice, and that's one thing once I understood. I was like, they want me to be proud of them for even having a voice. They want to be like me, they want to be an adult. And so it's like, wow, okay. And all I'm doing is shutting them down whenever I tell them that's dumb, do this. Okay, I need to act different. And so really whenever I got to ask more questions, listen more, this was a game changer whenever we were parenting our teens. Because what I found out is our teenagers, they actually had a process and why they did what they did. And sometimes it's like, okay, that's interesting. I wouldn't have done that, but okay, I kind of see what you were trying to do there. Interesting. Okay. And you start learning more about your kids that way as well. And whenever we approach it that way, you'll find that they'll talk to you more. Yeah. Your kids right now, they may be isolated in their rooms. They may be like they don't want to be a part of the family, but whenever you approach it this way, they'll start talking to you a whole lot more because they're like, man, they care. They're listening. Okay, well, I'll talk. And so a lot of times I think we can cause some of their isolation because we shut them down too often.
Yeah, well, and I think it's a natural tendency, no matter what type of parent you are, that your children want to find their own way, which means the opposite of what you were teaching them to do. And so when they are in that stage of trying to go opposite and you react to that every time, they're like, okay, it's like a win, right? But when they begin to see like, okay, like this isn't a, she's not even saying anything. She's not getting mad at me. There's that rebellious heart that's in there that it kind of takes the fun away of being opposite
diffuses
of you
it.
when you're not reacting to it. And it gives you time to go. It frees you from having to say anything in that moment and just being present and listening to them. And then to maybe sometime in the future come back it with like your opinion or why or whatever.
Yeah. And so that's just a powerful approach. So you do the transitional parenting, then you start asking more questions, listening more. The third one is mentorship. This is big in their lives. And what that looks like is we always say, try to get them in a youth group. Get them connected in youth groups. Now, our youth groups always safe and great and everything. No, you're going to have, church is full of sinners, right? And so you're going to have kids that are all kinds of crazy. But what normally happens in youth groups is you have good leaders. You have people there that have hearts for your teenagers, that have had some life experience and that are just there to help. Yeah. And then you've got the pastors as well working there and helping. We have found that the thing with it is that your kids, if it's coming from you, a lot of times they don't hear it. They don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. But if a mentor, a church leader, or a pastor says the same exact thing that you said, they hear it. And they come back, can you believe? Yeah, they said this and this. That's a really good idea. I told you that. That's what I've been saying. So,
but you don't even have to say that. Like, hold your mouth.
not at all. But that's what you're thinking. You're like, I did. But that's part of it. They are more receptive sometimes to outside resources than they are to you, just because they're closer to you. And they look up to them in a different way than they look up to you. And so they're more able to listen to some of the advice and stuff that they're giving. So mentorship's a really big thing, getting them connected and to have some people surrounding their lives that help coach them in a sense.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to just be the church youth group. That is a great place. But other options, like any extracurricular, something your kid is into, a sport, if they have a coach there, or if they're doing karate or dance class, art, whatever, where they're having somebody that's with them in close contact and getting to know them, even teachers. I know when our daughter was going through some of her hardest times, struggling with depression and the things that come from that, the things that I would tell her and the things that even the therapist would say, these are the right things to do, these are going to help you get out of this state, she couldn't hear it. But when a teacher that she loved and trusted said, you've got to stop doing that, you're hurting yourself and there's no good coming out of it, here's some things you can do instead, all of a sudden this light bulb went off, and now she was like, I don't want to do that anymore. So they do have this place to speak into their lives. And so be okay with that and be glad. I pray, God, send people into my children's life that's going to speak truth to them, and in a way that they can receive it.
Yeah, that's so good and so powerful. Mentorship is a big thing. So yeah, really connect them. You know, it takes a village, and so it's a networking. So you want them involved in things like that. And then the fourth one is inclusion. And this is one that, it's like when you're parenting teenagers, what you want to do is normally the complete opposite of what you should do, because whenever they're teenagers, you see them isolating themselves and pulling themselves away, right? They're unplugging from reality, trying to, hide or run away or whatever in their mind. So they stay in their room a lot. They stay on their phone a lot. So you see that, and so as parents, we're like, well, they don't want anything to do with the family, so I'm not gonna invite them to anything. I'm not gonna blah blah blah. Just
they pull away and you pull away.
They pull away, yeah, and you pull away because you think that that's what they want, and in reality, it's the complete opposite of what they want. No matter what they're saying to you, it's the complete opposite of what they want. They want to feel loved. They want to feel accepted. They want you to come in there and say, hey, I want to be with you. They want that. They desire that. And it's almost kind of like the cat and mouse game. They're like running away. Are they going to chase me? I want them to chase me. That's kind of what that is. And so as parents, the more we can include them in on things, include them in to come help you cook, include them in to go shopping, to go to the grocery stores, to go get some gas in the vehicle, to go out for a walk, or to go, here or there. Start including them, asking them. You might get shot down a lot, but you'll get some acceptance. They'll be like, yeah, no, sounds good. Cool.
Yeah, I know. I was completely shocked when my daughter was going through some of her times, and I thought she didn't want to have anything to do with me. And I just felt it, just invite her to the grocery store. And she's like, yeah, sure. Hold on. Let me get my shoes on. I'm like, wait, what? I wasn't prepared for that. Or you want to help cook dinner? And she would say yes. And another way to understand what your preteen and teen is wanting from you, when y'all are arguing with each other, the things that they're shouting out at you, don't get defensive on that. Take note of that. One thing my daughter, when we would get into these back and forth battles, she's like, you don't even invite me down to dinner. And I'm like, because I didn't think you ate dinner anymore. I didn't think you wanted to eat dinner with us. And, you get in these weird situations when you're kids.
Do I have to invite you down to dinner? I thought that was just a thing.
You would think. Well, and when your kids grow up and they start working and you're no longer sit together as a family, you get in these habits of just eating when you can. Maybe your spouse is doing their thing for the evening and it's just you and your kids up in the room. And so you just hurry and eat you something and you don't think about inviting them down and just the two of you having food together. But that was one thing in our arguments she would say. And I was like, I would get defensive, well, you da. And then I started thinking, no, this is important enough that she's using this to come back at me. So even if it is just a tool in her thing to fire me up, I'm going to take that tool away and I'm going to start asking her. And when I did, she would say yes, and she would come and she would sit down and her and I would eat. And so listen when your kids are yelling at you. What are they saying? You're not proud of me, or you don't ever say anything nice, or you don't appreciate it. Whatever it is they're saying, just take note.
Yeah, and, in that sense as well, just knowing that we are the thermostat when it comes to parenting, when it comes to arguing with our teenagers. There are going to be things that you don't see eye to eye with, and that they may challenge you, or you may challenge them, and things start getting heated to where you're back and forth. Remember, you're the adult and you're the thermostat. You set that tone. If I'm yelling, they're going to yell louder. And, we want to be aware of that and say, okay, if they're yelling, I'm not going to yell. I'm going to keep a calm voice and be like, okay, well, I hear you. Calm down. It's okay. Let's talk about this.
And if they refuse, because you might have that kid, When I learned the power of walking away and just say, look, this is obviously not a good time for us to talk about this. I'll be downstairs. And then I go away and I begin to pray, and not in a like super spiritual, I'm leaning down on my knees like, Lord, help my child up there. But just I'm sitting down. I just move on. Maybe go wash dishes. Maybe just go sit down and scroll your phone, whatever it is. And in my head, I am praying. And then I know that God's taking care of it. And I'm just trusting him to give us an opportunity. Every single time my kid has come down and said, look, I'm sorry. Yeah. Look, I didn't mean for it to get that way. So understand that you do have the power to be that thermostat. And it's okay to just say, look, this isn't a good time for either one of us right now. I'm going to go away for a little bit. You let me know when you're ready to talk.
Yeah. And that's powerful because we want to get into these heated matches and they escalate, but we're allowing that. So let's take that away. And if they're always going to try to one up you, so let's just not let them. Let's keep it down low and use the power of walking away and being nice about it, being loving, saying, just like you're saying, listen, I love you. I know whenever we're arguing, things aren't going to, there's not going to be anything good that comes from it. We'll talk about this once everybody's cooled down, and walk away. And boom, there's power. That might have just saved you a whole lot of headaches right there.
Didn't me.
And then the last thing is choose your battles. Not everything has to be a battle. And this was a hard one for us to learn. I think it's a hard one for any parent to learn. You always ask yourself, is this worth fighting for? Is this worth fighting about? Is this worth trying to make this a deal? And, one example is a clean room. Is that a battle worth fighting for? And, everybody's going to feel differently on that. To me, that was, that's not how I would keep my room, but as long as it stayed in your room, I'm cool with that. And I wouldn't make that a big deal to where now it's a blown out fight because I'm trying to get them to clean their room and trying to tell them how nasty and dirty they are. That's just, if that's how you choose to live in your room, okay. Keep it in there.
Except your roaches are coming. They don't know to stay in there.
Right. But, that's the example is, we wanted to, is it that important? Is it important enough to where it's going to wedge in your relationship? It's going to put a wedge in your relationships.
Yeah, I know a lot of the things that I chose as battles early on. And this, again, came from my need thinking I was going to parent these children that were perfect, Christian, law-abiding children that never made any mistakes. And so, their music was huge. And so, of course, they're going to try to choose music outside of what I'm listening to, what they call the Jesus music. Every time they're in the car, they're finding their own thing. If it had a cuss word in it, it was out. We are not doing this. Their clothes that they wear, that was a huge battle. If I saw cussing in their text messages, these were all things early on that I blew into a bigger. Now, I'm not saying they're not important. I don't want that. But I blew those things up so big when we got into our big stuff. I was like, I wish I was just upset because she said SHIT in a text message to one of her friends.
Yeah, so it really is, and I think for parents, we see our kids, we see the potential in our kids, and we're like, you will achieve this, and we set the bar so high for them. And in fact, our kids told us that so often, back then, y'all just set the bar so high, we just knew that we couldn't hit it, we couldn't achieve it, so what's the point in even trying? And, a lot of that is just on the battles that we're choosing to fight. And so the less battles that we're fighting, the more healthy our family will be. And that's just, man, good stuff. Mm-hmm. So all of these things, right? So transitional parenting, asking more questions and listening more, mentorship, inclusion, and then choosing your battles. These will all help eliminate a lot of the issues you see with your kids. And it won't get them all, but it will help you as a parent to have more of a handle on things. Yeah. And the more that you can focus on that, the more healthier you will be mentally and physically, and the more healthier as a parent you'll be for your kids, and they will be receptive of that. So you'll see them being healthier as well. Because in reality, they just want to be loved. They want to feel accepted in their home, even when it feels like they're pushing away. It's just a cat and mouse game. They want you to chase them a little bit. They want, they're changing, and they want to know that you still love them and that you value them. And, the more that we can communicate and encourage them in that, the more love and acceptance you'll see with them, and just a change physically and mentally for them. It's a really powerful thing, and that can really help ease the preteen and teenage years there for you. You're still going to have your challenges, but hopefully these give you a lot more tools and ways to approach it to where you'll get better results in it. And then you as a family, y'all just have some amazing times. But, it is a challenge in blended families. You will see more pushback. You will see a lot more of these problems in a blended family.
Yeah, and they have a way out. I think you said that earlier.
Yeah.
They have a way out, and if they don't feel loved and accepted in your home, they're going to naturally want to go to the other home. And you probably have a parent on the other side saying, come over here, baby. I will love you. I accept you for just the way that you are.
It'll be easier over here.
And the reality is when they're there 24/7, they're going to end up with some rules and stuff that they don't agree with as well. But we don't want to just constantly drive them in that other direction, right? We want to make both homes a safe, loving environment where they feel like they are a part of it. And so that's doing these things. It helps set the stage for that. It's not going to make every single problem go away. Again, it's a process. You're not going to get it right. They're not going to get it right. But the more you work towards it, the better that you're going to get.
Yeah, and it is, we started the transitional parent was really hard for us, but once we finally got it and understood a lot of these things, it just changed our relationships with our kids to where now, as them being young adults, we have some really great relationships with them. And, but it took us kind of shifting the way that we did things or understanding to do that. And man, there was so much power in it.
Now the kids call us and ask us. We don't have to give our advice constantly because they're like, hey, what do I do here? How do I do this? Should I do this? And I'm like, geez, can't you solve your own problem?
But it's more like they know that we're there for them,
and I love
we're
that
not
they call
shutting
and
them
out.
down.
Yeah, that they ask now.
So it's powerful stuff. So listen, be encouraged. As parents, this is just part of the journey that we go through raising our kids, and it can be one of the most challenging times in a blended family. But there can be some real beauty out of it. So take these tools, tips, tricks, use them, work on them, practice them. You're not going to get them all right, but the more that you keep a focus on this, the better results you'll see.
Yeah.
So listen, we love you, and we will see you on the next episode. Later.
Bye. Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has been a blessing and encouraged your family journey.
Make sure you stay connected with us and join our weekly Blended Family newsletter. We send an email out every Friday morning full of support and encouragement.
And when you join, we also want to give you a free gift. So go get yours today. The link is in the show notes below.
Have an amazing day. Remember to enjoy the journey with your blended family, and we'll see you on the next episode.